All right, welcome back for another episode of Dollar Bin Digging. This is the video and article that I do for comicbookinvest.com where I talk about those cheap comics you can still probably find tucked away in those dollar bins, those discount boxes, at your flea markets, yard sales, at your LCS, wherever you're doing your cheap comic book hunting. These are some things I think you can still dig out of there based off of some of the recent news, rumors, announcements, television shows, and things going on in the actual comics. Hopefully you're enjoying this series as well as everything else here on the channel. Please let me know what you think in the comments down below. Make sure that you like, you subscribe, you hit the alert button so you don't miss anything. Keep telling your friends so we can keep growing the channel. And if you want to see this week's selection of books, don't worry, I got you covered. Just hang on for a few seconds after the intro, and I will be right back. All right, for those of you out there like me who actually like reading these funny books, these are some things. If you would have read some of this week's new releases, you might see some connections, some characters you might be wondering, where are their first appearances? And are these books that I can go and find on the cheap? And the answer for a lot of these is yes. You can find a lot of these for cheap because they're not the biggest characters in the world, but there's still some fun books that you can go and hunt when you're out there digging through those boxes this weekend. Just sort of a fun scavenger hunt kind of thing, you know? Not everything has to be about making a ton of money. I mean, yes, we all would like to make money and find those huge scores when you're digging in a cheap box, but this is that extra stuff. These are the things you could probably stumble across and go, you know what? This is a fun book. This is going to give me some backstory, some history. Plus, I might just want to have the first appearances of these characters just in my collection, you know, for whatever reason. With that said, let's look at one of the new releases that came out this week, and that is the New Champions #1. You know, all of those weird sidekick characters that a few of them already had their cover first appearances, Hit and Spike, and then each new release that's kind of dribbling them out, they've all started to hit as well. Finally, they get their own series. And to start off their series, they go and face a couple of classic baddies. Now, these guys are not going to set the world on fire, but it's still fun to go back and look at the Brothers Grimm. So, these guys have a convoluted sort of backstory and history. So, we're going to look at a few books and go over it kind of quickly just to kind of fill you in and bring you up to speed. Again, if you want to know more about these two, yes, they're just the opening salvo villains in this book, but hey, who knows what may come of them down the line. They got cool designs. They look kind of fun. You know, cool. Anyway, let's look at the Brothers Grimm. Going all the way back to 1978, in the third issue of Spider-Woman, we get introduced to Brother Grimm. That's right, singular. There was only one. When it started off, there was one. It was Brother Grimm. He was a baddie introduced in the early days as a foil to Spider-Woman. And again, these guys got a weird history. They're like animated mannequins, and they're sorcerers and sorcerers. It's weird stuff. That said, inside this issue, not only on the cover, which you see right there, his name is Brother Grimm and yada, yada, yada. Perfect. On the cover, no denying, no complaining, no confusion here. And right here inside the parallel Brother Grimm, you get introduced to him right away at the start of the story. So it's first full, whatever you want to call it. Still not that expensive of a book. Yes, there'll be some expensive copies if you find them in really nice grade, but by and large, you can look here. Copies are sold for $5, $7 for a couple of issues together, and then $12.99 is, you know, for a higher grade one. Cool. I mean, asking prices $5, $10, $12, and yes, could go up a little higher, but you definitely find it also for a little bit cheaper if you go out there digging. Again, it's a first of one of the brothers, sort of, but not exactly. Now, if you follow through the Spider-Woman storyline for that first like dozen or so issues, Brother Grimm and the sorceress behind them kind of is like in the background. It's kind of a constant threat for Spider-Woman. It all kind of comes to a head later on in the run here, like issue 11, when we start getting into the end of it. And it's really into the next issue where they kind of face off, because this is one of those last page reveals. But this is where we go from one brother to two. So again, still in 1978, you see, you know, the sorceress behind the whole thing, and she's got her mannequin voodoo dolls animated. Here are the Brothers Grimm, the original Brothers Grimm, together now. So now we have two. Spider-Woman #11 again, right at the end of this book, and then the storyline kind of wraps up in the next issue. Also, not an expensive book. You can see here copies selling for $2, $3.84. A lot sold for $10. Asking prices anywhere from $4 to $10, $12. Again, depending on condition. This goes back to the late 70s. So finding it in high grade could be tough. And as such, you might have to pay a higher premium for it. But you never know. You can get lucky when you're out there digging. And with that said, those are the OG original Brothers Grimm, the animated sorcerer things. Now, those actually aren't the two that were in the New Champions. For that, we have to look at these other brothers, Barton and Percy Grimes, the current Brothers Grimm. These two were introduced in Iron Man back in 1984. So Iron Man 188, again, boom, right there on the cover. You got the two of them. These two find the original Brothers Grimm kind of costumes and decided to take on this mantle as their own. So here, these two decide, hey, we're going to be the new Brothers Grimm, basically. And since then, they have been. So for the last 40 years, these are our Brothers Grimm. And they even reference that storyline I told you about from Spider-Woman issues 3 to 12. See it right down there at the bottom. They kind of call back to it. So these are the two that are in the New Champions book. With that said, again, this is not an expensive book at all. You want to go and dig for it. I know you can find old Iron Man books in those cheap boxes. Copies sell for best offer on $2.09, meaning somebody paid less than $2.09 for this thing. $2.49, $3.20 recent sales. Asking prices $3, $7, $9. Again, not going to break your bank. Not going to destroy your wallet or your budget. So if you want to find this stuff, you can. And you can generally find it for cheap. And that's kind of what I'm suggesting. Go look for this stuff for fun, for cheap. Put it in your collection. Show off a little bit and start talking when you're in the shop. And be like, all right, you guys read New Champions this week? Yeah, you see Brothers Grimm. You remember those guys? Yeah, they first showed up in Iron Man 188. Here, boom. Throw it down and try to talk somebody else into buying it. If you already have it, that kind of thing. You know how it goes when you're in a shop. You start chatting. People like to show off. They like to show off their knowledge. So I'm just trying to help you expand your knowledge base and look for some of these books. Now, with that said, let's get to another new release this week. We got the second issue of the all-new Venom. And while we haven't found out who the new Venom is yet, they're kind of narrowing things down. They're kind of pointing the finger at each other. They even had a meeting of a few of the characters saying, is it you? Is it you? Is it you? Hey, none of us have alibis. We shall see how this plays out. But at the start of this issue, we get shown a team who we haven't seen in a little while. And this goof troop of characters is still goofy. Here they are, huge double-page spread, new Venom, whole crew of characters here. These are the Death Throes. They're villainous jugglers, basically. Yes, villainous jugglers, for the most part. That's kind of by and large what they do. Yeah. Whole bunch of them here, and they actually have go back a ways, go back together, and then we get some new ones. We'll get into that in a second. But this goofy cast of characters right at the opening is trying to audition some new recruits, and we'll look at those in a minute. But the OG originals are right here. We got Ringleader, Knick-Knack, Tenpin, and Bombshell. Oddball, for some reason, I didn't see Oddball in there. So I don't know if he died or they lost him along the way, but there was a character called Oddball who's just missing from this crew. That said, this group of four first showed up way back in Cap. I'm thinking that's the wrong date. I'm sorry, I didn't update that. But Cap 317. Here we go. Our group of jugglers. And there's that Oddball character I told you, the real colorful one. Looks like Polka Dot Man. That's Oddball who got left out here. But Tenpin, you see him, he's juggling the fiery pins, and you got a little Knick-Knack, little smaller guy, and you got Bombshell, and then there's Ringleader doing his rings. Original crew, original recipe, Death Throes in this class. And I always see this Cap book in those cheap boxes. That bright yellow cover kind of catches you, and it's got Hawkeye on it. And I always liked the look of Hawkeye when I was growing up. So I always found this, and I've found this for $1 plenty of times. This is out there for sure. Granted, it's still not really an expensive book. It's $2, $3, $4, $5. Copies were sold for asking prices. Yeah, $3 to $4 and maybe some higher, and that $7 to $10 kind of range. It is what it is. Once again, higher grade, you might pay a higher price, but by and large, this is the book you can go and find. Now, with that said, that's the original crew of Death Throes. But as I mentioned, in this issue, we actually get some brand new first appearances. So this is kind of a little add-on extra that I just want to kind of cover while we're talking here. That as part of this crew, they're auditioning some new characters. And this isn't the first time they've done it. It seems like every time these guys show up, they're always auditioning new recruits, at least from a few things I've seen. But here we go. Here are a few new recruits they are introducing here, and these are technically first appearances in this all-new Venom #2. Now, I don't think these characters are going to amount to much, but again, some of this could just be fun, right? Here we go. We've got the pirate lady throwing cannonballs, heave ho. We've got a British dude with a brick, looks like a soccer hooligan. And then we've got a mascot out of Philadelphia called Chuck Stuff. Yeah, this is where we're at. Again, these are probably not going to be the next great Marvel foils showing up in the MCU. But, hey, they're first appearances, so I know people like that kind of thing. Anyway, I want to focus in here on Chuck Stuff, being that I live outside of Philadelphia. I take this one a little personal. This silliness that they're doing here. I know what they're trying to do, trying to call back, but my man's got cheesesteaks. He's literally throwing cheesesteaks at Venom. Where does he keep these cheesesteaks? Does he have more than the 2? Or is that it? Like, once he throws his 2, he's out. I don't know. But all I can tell you is, and then he's got to go with the whole thing. They put John in there, and then they're also doing other things. No, it's a hoagie. I get it. The writer trying to be funny, I guess. Or trying to actually use Philly stuff. I don't know. Maybe they had good intentions behind it. Me, felt a little weird, a little forced. But the point being, this character is obviously Gritty. Obviously, they're making fun of Gritty here. Or doing a callback to Gritty. Whatever you want to call it. I know. He's a weird mascot. It's a weird mascot for the Flyers to have. But yeah, it's basically Gritty throwing cheesesteaks is now a supervillain character. I don't know. Anyway, if you're interested in those characters, all new Venom 2 will be their first appearances. Now, what else do we got here? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't move the arrow. We're not looking here at Heave Ho. It's actually way, way, way in the back there with the U.S. Uncle Sam top hat on the stilts. That's where I meant the arrow to go because we want to talk about Throwdown. So Throwdown is another member who is part of the squad. At this point, she's not auditioning because she auditioned earlier. Going back to 2014, so a decade ago, in Loki, Agent of Asgard, even though this is Agent of Axis, this is the Loki Agent of Asgard series. Number 8, we got that cool homage, X-Men cover there. But inside this book, boom, we got the Death Throes, again, auditioning Throwdown. So this was her audition. Chuck Stuff and Tosser and Heave Ho are auditioning currently. 10 years ago, Throwdown was auditioning to make the Death Throes. And it looks like Oddball was still part of the squad back then. So again, I'm not down with all my Death Throw history, so I don't know what happened to Oddball, why he got cut from this. But Throwdown, again, in this issue, if you want to get her first, it's a book that, again, that's the entire run of the series, all 17 issues for $40. And you break the math down, that's, under $3 an issue. Still a good price if you want to read this whole run. And then you see copies because of the homage cover, the throwback cover. You can see some copies asking for as high as $25, but by and large, most of them are down in the $4 to $8 kind of range as far as asking prices go. But it could go as high as $25 asking, but you see it's not selling. So, hey, who knows? Just wanted to point it out and just wanted to throw it out there because, again, you never know. You want to collect all your Death Throes, you got to get them all, right? With that said, Death Throes are not the only villains in this book. Later on in the issue, after we get through the Death Throes and Venom has to go make his meeting, and then we're trying to figure out who he is. Is it Luke Cage? Is it Rick Jones? Is it Robbie? They're all pointing the finger, still saying, hey, maybe it's Madam Mask. And then we get a weird scene with Dylan and Paul, who sucks. Yeah, we get that. Anyway, later on, Dylan sees this happen when we run into the villain Chance. The character that is on the first appearance of Venom back in Amazing Spider-Man 298. I know it's a cameo. He's in the back, but he's also on the cover of 299, which, again, cameo in the back. If you want to call it a cameo, whatever, it's Venom. That said, Chance shows up here, shoots Venom through the face. So Dylan actually makes the joke, I guess it's not Luke Cage, because otherwise Luke Cage don't fit if he has no head. So maybe we're checking one character. I still think it might be Luke Cage, or I thought it might be, but now I'm not so sure because I don't know. I don't know what this means. But sorry to spoil it if you hadn't read this issue already. But Yeah, that's what I'm here to do. I'm here to spoil and tell you about what's in it. So you kind of accepted that when you sat down to watch this show. That said, Chance. Let's go back to Chance. Chance didn't first show up in those Amazing Spider-Man issues. I just referenced those because that's probably where you recognize him from. Again, McFarlane doing the covers on 298 and 299 before, obviously, 300. But Chance first showed up in Web. So, going back to Web of Spider-Man, number 15, back in 1986, that's what we're seeing. And now Chance, again, back when comics used to introduce the characters and put them right on the cover and even put their names right on the cover so you knew what you're getting inside. I missed that. Now with these slow trickle out cameos, and we have to argue over, is it a full, is it not? Well, it was just a cover appearance, they're not inside and all that. Can't we go back to the good old days where it was nice and simple? That said, inside this book, as I said, there's Chance. He's right there at the beginning, working with Foreigner, and is sort of a assassin, hitman, bounty hunter, whatever you want to call it. I don't know. Point being, also a cheap book. So if you really want to get the first appearance of Chance, I don't know how long he's going to stick around again. Is he going to be some huge foil villain for Venom? But I still think it's kind of fun that we get this new series of Venom with a new Venom, and we're still getting a callback to a character that was involved when we first were introduced to the very first Venom. I don't know. I think it's kind of interesting. And I think it's worth noting. That said, this book, again, look, $3, $6 copies have sold for, asking prices as cheap as $3.40 up to like $10, $12, depending on, condition and all that stuff. So once again, fun book that you can go and dig for. Maybe you find it for cheap, maybe you find it for a good price, and it's something you want to just stash away in your collection. Right? It can just be fun. Now, that's what I got for Marvel. We're going to go shift not to DC, and I'll explain why in a minute, but we're going to go over to an indie book. I know probably very few of you out there are actually reading Valiant books these days. I'm not even reading them these days. And this being, apart from Archer and Armstrong, I also like Eternal Warrior a bit because it kind of ties. But Shadow Man was always one of my favorites from the old school original Valiant universe. So even though I'm not reading the series, just kind of been burnt out. They've restarted it so many times now. And I tried to buy in on the new restarts, but I just kind of gave up after a while. Maybe I'll go back to reading it. But that all said, that all not, set aside, looking at this particular issue that came out this week, I do like the fun callbacks to the OG original Valiant universe. And inside this book, Shadow Man Soul Eaters, this number 4, we get shown here. This broad. I know what you're thinking. Looks like Master Dark. There's a reason for it, because that's his sister. I don't know if you guys remember, but Master Dark, who is one of my favorite Valiant villains, at least. I like the whole voodoo kind of aspect of the dark magic. It's kind of cool. But he had a sister, and her name was Sandria, if I'm saying it right. Yeah, Sandria Dark. Boom. They've shown her again, redone, redesigned over the years, because she first appeared way, way back in the 90s, and she had hair. So a little bit of a different look. So she didn't have that Cassandra Nova matching cue ball look to her brother. But in the original Shadow Man run, issue 10, we get introduced to Sandria here. So, boom. Inside this book, they're floating there, brother and sister with their tats all out, doing dark magic stuff. Is what it is. This book is the very definition of dollar bin fodder. I don't even know if they bother even putting this out anymore. But plenty of these out there in those boxes, plenty of the Valiant books, to the point where, look, copies aren't even selling for cheap as they are because they can't. And I saw copies listed for less than $1, literally listed for like 80 cents, and still not sold. Then there's other copies listed for $1.50, $3, whatever. You are not going to get rich with this book. But again, comics can be more than about money, right? Just kind of fun. And again, if you want to read and kind of catch up and see her first, this is her first. This is where she first appeared. Now, I don't know. I just thought it was interesting. And like I said, I'm just keeping tabs on it because Shadow Man, again, is a personal favorite of mine if we got to talk about the Valiant universe. I kind of wish they would bring back some of the other old universe. Remember Malibu? Wouldn't mind seeing some of those characters again. Anyway, with that said, any out there who haven't tried Whatnot yet, now's your chance. Use my link below. Sign up. Get yourselves a free $15 to spend on whatever you want with whomever you want. No strings attached. You help out the channel. You get yourself something nice. So you really got nothing to lose just to give it a try. So $15 if you want to give it a shot. Just use that link and sign up down below. Now, I told you before we didn't do DC this week because there weren't a lot of DC books. Weren't a lot of new ones. We had Aquaman #1, but there wasn't really any good connections of things I could tell you about. We had Absolute Batman 4, yada, yada. Not a lot of DC this week. So I had to go back to last week to cover a book that we didn't cover anyway. So new last week, we had Batgirl #3. Still checking this out, still reading it. I like the League of Assassins stuff. I like the Lady Shiva and her daughter Cassandra Cain thing going here. I'm still kind of curious. I'm still on board for now and reading this. So at the end of this issue, as Cassandra Cain's still kind of curious about Lady Shiva's motives, and she's kind of watching her and tracking her. At the end of this, we get to see some more assassins here at the end. So, who do we got here showing up here at the end of the book? Well, we're going to start left to right and run through this crew. Now, first up, character should be familiar. She's relatively new. I remember when her book was hot when she first was introduced. Angel Breaker. Pretty cool look, pretty cool image. She first showed up during that whole Deathstroke thing with Batman, Shadow War Alpha #1. So only a couple years ago. This is March 2022. Not that old of a book, but inside, she's only in there like a couple panels, and this is the second panel. She was standing around the first one, and at the end, she's attacking. Also, variants have her on the cover, etc. But this is the book, again, this is where she first appeared, albeit cameo, whatever you want to call it. Book's not that expensive. It's the cover price and less for the most part. You can see here copies selling for $5 for 2 covers, like you got an A and a B. The B cover there selling for $1.24. A cover selling for $4.93. Yeah, it is what it is. At listings, $2, $3, $5. It's cover price and less, basically. But you never know. More could come out of this character. Again, it's only a couple years old, 2022. There could be more in store for all we know. All right, moving across the table, moving around the table here. Boom, right here. This is Nyssa. Nyssa Al Ghul or Nyssa Ratko or Ratko. I don't know how to pronounce it with that double A. But this is the older daughter of Ra's al Ghul, if you will. I always say Ra's al Ghul. It's a hard habit to break. The Ra's al Ghul thing from like the Arrow TV show and all that still kind of rolls off the tongue weird to me. I just want to say Ra's al Ghul. I don't know. Anyway, the Demon's Head. So this is his first daughter, and everybody knows Talia. A lot of people forget about Nyssa. And I know in that Arrow TV show, they actually made her the younger daughter, but she's actually the older daughter. She's been around a while. Character-wise, though, in the comics, not as long as in the history of the comics, but we still got to go back a ways to 2003. Detective Comics 783. I've talked about this book before because I like the character, and I think it's interesting. Granted, she shows up in a preview at the back. You can see here on the cover, it says, plus, Death and the Maidens by Greg Rucka and Klaus Janson. Great storyline. I think it's like 9 issues, I think the whole mini is. Go find those, give those a read. If you find those in a dollar bin, definitely pick those up. I was going to put them in the deck, but then I decided not to because I just want to focus in on the first. But that run, that Death and the Maidens, it's a good read. Give it a shot. But it's previewed here at the end of this book, which is why this would be considered her first appearance. And yeah, there she is, and talking about her father, the Demon's Head, and she's got a little boy and Daniel and whatever. This book, not that expensive. You can still find it out there for cheap. Copies selling for $2.50 up to $7.50. Listings $3, $4. Pretty cheap. It was another like restart for detectives, so I think it was heavily printed at the time. But again, just a fun book if you can go and find, and a good first appearance for a character that may have some legs. She hasn't been around in a while. Maybe they got some plans for her now that they're bringing her back. I mean, again, she hasn't been around for a good long while, actually. So who knows where Nyssa might go now that they've introduced her in with the rest of these, the League of Assassins. Okay, moving down the table. This one, they don't say who this is. They don't confirm it. So I'm going to be placing an educated guess as to who I think this is. Because again, we just see the character here. It's a dude in a suit. I get it. Maybe, may not be. Could be a new character. Could be somebody else. But who he reminded me of, just looking at the suit with the gloves and just being all kind of, all dapper. He reminded me of this character. And it's also connecting to Batgirl. Also because of the Batgirl connection. He reminds me of this character, Alpha. Apparently a master of gun fu. Kind of it was like a follow-up to like all the Matrix stuff. I guess they wanted to create a character that also did that kind of fun assassin-y type stuff and could be magically talented or whatever you want to call it. Not magically, but you know what I'm saying. Anyway, this character of Alpha first showed up in December 2002 in Batgirl. So who is Alpha? Right there in the cover and inside the book. Hey, even in 2002, we were still getting the classic way to introduce characters. It's like a whole storyline where he's kind of lost his memory and he's in falling through. And give it a read, give it a look. See, explain more later in later books, but this was his first. He's throughout this issue. This is him. His name's like Morrison or something. But anyway, Batgirl, Sandra Kane, Batgirl, found Alpha. So that's why I think it's a good connection. It's probably him sitting at that table, but I'm still not 100% sure because, again, they didn't confirm it anywhere. I'm just making an educated guess. With that said, this is also a cheap book. You can go and find it. Look, copies, $2, $2.70 at my comic shop, $6.47 as a high sale recently. Asking prices $2.50, $3.75. Not expensive at all. Brightly colored, pretty cool book. I don't know. I think it's worth a grab and a stash just for $1 or so. Just something cheap, and who knows? What do you really got to lose? $1? We spent $1 on a lot worse things, right? With that said, other things you may not want to spend your money on, but you got to do it. You need your supplies. You need your bags, your boards, your long boxes, your short boxes, CGC boxes, even top loaders, card pages, anything you need to keep your collectibles safe. Go check out BCW. You can use the link down below, but definitely use my code RENA10 if you're making a purchase and save yourself 10% off your entire order. Because why you got to spend that money on those supplies that you don't want to? Since you got to do it, you might as well save money while you do it, right? So no harm in getting yourself 10% off just by using the code RENA10 and getting yourself that 10% off when you're buying all those bags and boards and boxes, etc. Because I know it sucks. You hate when that time comes around. You're like, man, I need more boxes. Or, man, I got to buy some more bags and boards. No one wants to do it, but if you got to do it, save money while you do it. With that said, moving on into sort of our news section here. This is my last book for the day. It's going to be something a little bit different. It isn't so much news as of this week. It's just something I'm kind of looking ahead to, I guess you would say. And that's a new Marvel game coming this year. And this is Marvel 1943, The Rise of Hydra. We've been seeing the last couple of weeks some like little trailer clips and a little bit more info leaking out as far as the cast of characters and the voices actors that they're using, etc. So in Marvel 1943, The Rise of Hydra, we are actually going to get some connections to Wakanda of the time. So who are we looking at then? In the game, they're using the character Azuri. Now, Azuri is another AKA name for T'Chanda. And T'Chanda, again, if I'm pronouncing this right, I'll be lucky. But T'Chanda is actually T'Chaka's father. And T'Chaka, if you recall, is T'Challa's father. So our current Black Panther, T'Challa, everybody knows that one, his grandfather, basically, in the 40s. That's who this is, this Black Panther of the time. Goes by both of those names, the Azuri and the T'Chanda. Now, character first appeared. I know what you're thinking. Like, where did this first appear? It's probably some weird Black Panther story, some tough to find run, whatever. No. Actually, in January of 1993, in the Fantastic Four Unlimited, #1, this little 90s story, that's where we get introduced to the character here. So this is the book you're going to want to look for this first appearance of the character. Boom. This is him going at it at the end of this little backup story. Again, it's like an anthology sort of storyline or sort of book, this Fantastic Four Unlimited, because that's what the Unlimited books were, more like anthologies for the characters. But yeah, boom, you get him in there. Why am I talking about video game characters? Well, if Marvel Rivals can sell, comics, why not, go into a new game that's coming out? Maybe that'll be a new thing where video games start moving books. Just saying, it doesn't hurt to look. And it doesn't hurt to be prepared, but you also get a double dip in this book. So you're not only getting his grandfather, you're getting the Black Panther's grandmother, Nanali. She's also going to be in the game. And she also appears in this book. Because, granted, T'Chaka looked weird there. The baby head, yeah, I get it. It looks a little bit like a sandworm from Dune or something. I don't know. A little, maybe even... Remember Stinky from Clone Wars, the little Jabba baby? I don't know. It's a funny looking baby. I know babies are not easy for anybody to draw. So I'm just saying, I get it. It's not easy. If you ever draw kids, hard to draw kids, especially babies. But there she is, the grandparents of the Black Panther, current Black Panther. She's also in this same book. So again, January 1993, same book. Boom. Earlier in the story is where we were introduced to her here. But so again, you get a double dip with this book. And it's not that bad. If you go and dig for it, This book's from the 90s. This is 90s fodder, so you could probably find it for cheap. Look, copies was sold best offer for issues 1 and 2 under $4 for the two of them. Copy sold for $5. Meanwhile, asking prices could be cheap. $2.99, $4.99, $12. I also saw copies listed looking for like 30 and $40 too. I don't know. But people out there fishing, who knows? Maybe we get there at some point. Maybe the price does reach those marks. I don't know. But like I said, it's good to be prepared. So take a chance. If you want to take a chance on a video game selling moving comics, this could be a good one. I'm just saying. With that said, I want to thank you guys for stopping by and checking this out. I'm still having fun doing this. I'm going to try to do more weird stuff like that video game angle that I did there at the end. So I'm not only going to just do the new release comics, I'm going to try to find some news items and some other oddball tie-ins that we could find into comics that we can kind of, look for. Just some fun stuff. Hopefully you're on board for that. Hopefully you like that. So with that all said, I'm just going to wrap it up for now, and I will see you all later with some more content. All right.